Thank you all for coming this morning. We're going to go ahead and get started. I'll try and keep us on schedule here. I appreciate you being here. As you know, I think the topic for our Tech Talk for this month is information security. We've visited this topic a couple of times before. Daniel did Tech Talks on information security the last couple of years. And had shared some really good information and tips with everybody. Some of what I'll be covering today are some of the same points that he's touched on in previous talks, so hopefully some of it's familiar to you. There are some new things, though, that are important for everybody to know that I'm going to be covering today as well, and I'll point those out as we go. Our agenda and the set of topics that I want to cover is first focus on awareness. Talk about information security in the news and some of the targeted phishing attacks that we've seen and the concerns around those, often called spear phishing. It's a more targeted form of phishing aiming specifically at a particular organization or set of people. We'll touch on two-step authentication. There was an entire Tech Talk last month dedicated to reviewing the new two-step authentication system for Stanford, and I just want to touch on that and a couple of key points in case you weren't able to attend that talk and talk about how it relates to our overall security profile. And then I'll talk about endpoint encryption, and this is where there's some very specific news and a deadline and some action that each of you may need to take in order to make sure that we meet that May 31st deadline. And then lastly, touch on the point about long passwords. And one of the things that I'll share there as well is some personal experience and advice related to password management tools. It's one of the more common questions that I've received and that others in our group have gotten about how do you keep track of all of those passwords, knowing that you need to have long passwords and unique ones for each site and so on and so forth. So I'll share my personal experience related to that. So that's the agenda and the set of topics that we're going to cover. So I'll jump right into some of the awareness context. Within the IT department, our focus is on the hardware and the technology and the applications. We deal with the security patches, make sure that we have firewalls in place that try and prevent the intruders from getting into our network in the first place. We support encryption on all of our computers and mobile devices and make sure that that happens. Make sure that we are getting backups of all of our devices as well. And by sharing information with you either through these Tech Talks or through other email communications and such. And the other half of that team effort is the things that we need you to do. We need you to be vigilant about identifying and avoiding phishing attacks. We honestly, I think as a whole, land buildings and real estate has been very good about that. We often will get questions from some of you saying, is this a legitimate email? Should I be doing the things that it asks or not whenever something looks fishy or looks suspicious? So we want to encourage you to keep doing that and be circumspect about looking at your email. It's important that each of you have and use strong passwords, both for your Senate IDs and for other business purposes, and that you practice physical security, that when you walk away from your computer, that you lock the screen, hit the Windows key and L in order to lock the screen and make sure that nobody can jump on your computer and take over activities in the systems and information that you have access to. And that you use the two-step authentication system as a way for a second line of defense in protecting our information. So those are some of the points that I'll cover in a little bit more detail. One of the key myths that we always want to touch on is this one. The thought of, why does a hacker want my computer? I have nothing of value. Why is that important? And really, a couple of key points there are, yes, absolutely, your computer is very valuable. Your information is very valuable. If you have a bank account, a credit card, PayPal account, or other online financial information, your computer is the gateway to accessing that information for someone who's out to get into it. Do you have contact info for friends and colleagues? Just getting that information allows an attacker to get a set of known, valid other people to contact. And I think wouldn't be surprised if each of you at one point or another has some friend or relative who's been tricked into clicking on the wrong thing or had their computer compromised, and you got some sort of a fishy-looking email from them that went out to everybody in their email address book, trying to distribute some sort of a virus or encourage people to click on some website that would further compromise their machine. Just getting access to that network of people and information is a valuable commodity in and of itself. You have a computer with internet access. Yeah, absolutely. You've got that by itself. That's valuable. In one of the prior Tech Talks, Daniel talked about botnets and described how attackers will simply compromise computers for the purpose of installing software that allows them to remotely use them to launch attacks on other targets. It's commonly used with, you may have heard the term, a denial of service attack, where a group of people will intentionally try and take a particular website offline and make it unavailable for use. And they do that by sending massive amounts of traffic to that website or to that organization. And having your computer compromised and making it a part of that botnet is part of what enables those sorts of attacks to happen. And then lastly, do you have a Sunnet ID? Everybody here has one of those, and that is the key to Stanford's network. It's a key to Stanford's network. It allows you to get access to the Stanford network and to information resources here at the university. And for an attacker to have that means that they have the ability to come inside the Stanford network and similarly have access to that information. So in and of itself, that's a quite valuable piece of information. So phishing, mentioned this as one of the things that we're particularly concerned about. And in answer to the question of why is phishing a big deal, we've all seen the scam emails of the Nigerian prince that wants to share their millions with you, and so on and so forth. That's one form of them. But more and more, we're seeing these very targeted attacks. In the news this year, there have been two major headlines in terms of information security compromises. A little help here. Anybody tell me what those two are? Target was one of the ones from last year. From this year, we're only 2 months into the year. Sony is one of them. Anthem's the other one. Exactly. Sony and Anthem. 2 months into the year, two major headlines about that. And in both of those cases, phishing was the way that it started. There's a headline in an article from earlier this month about the Anthem breach and how that began with phishing of employees. Basically, targeted messages sent to employees of Anthem Blue Cross masquerading as legitimate emails that they might normally see as a part of their normal business, encouraging them to click on websites that were intentionally designed to look just like the websites that they use in their day-to-day business and trick them into trying to log into those sites, and by virtue of that, capturing their Anthem Blue Cross login information. The same thing is true of the Sony attack. Same thing there. There were phishing attempts targeted at Sony employees that specifically were leading them to sites that were made to look exactly like the sort of business applications that Sony used on a daily basis, and tricking people into logging into that fake site, and by virtue of that, having access to their login information. The same thing has happened here at Stanford, and so. Just some general points here about avoiding phishing scams. Number one, you need to get in the habit of looking carefully at your email. Don't click on links in emails unless you are confident that they are legitimate, that they're the real thing. And better yet, if you see something that, in an email that says go to this website, simply retype that URL in yourself into your web browser rather than clicking through the link. That's one way for you to know for sure that you're going to a legitimate site. If you've entered that address yourself. And be cautious about opening email attachments. Is this something that you were actually expecting from a colleague or from an individual? And is legitimate, or is it possible that it's something that is just unexpected and you weren't planning to see this, and therefore could be an instance of one of their system being compromised and that attacker sending out those mass messages out to everybody in their address book. When in doubt, stop, ask, and confirm that this is legitimate. We're happy to hear the questions from each of you that say, hey, I see this, it doesn't look right to me, tell me, is this legitimate? That helps us to understand when there's a targeted activity going on, and helps us to send out a broader alert to all of land buildings and real estate and let people know to be on the lookout for this and head off anybody else who might be tricked into clicking on it. So keep telling us about those. A couple of examples here. There is a very good website as a part of the Stanford Information Security website that is online that has a couple of examples. And in previous talks, Daniel touched on these. In this particular example, we have a disguised or modified link, and this is one of the most common things. Is that there's a link in the email that if you point your mouse at that and just hover over it, you'll see a little window pop up in Outlook that will tell you the address that URL is actually going to. Look carefully at that address. Is that a legitimate Stanford address? In this case, it starts to look like it, access.stanford.edu, .nr-9138. The key point is the last two bits here before that first slash, or.info. That's not a Stanford website. It should say stanford.edu in those last two pieces, not at the beginning of the URL. And so looking at that and identifying when that is not a legitimate link is an important piece. This happens to be an example that many of you probably saw where an attacker gained access to someone's email, was able to copy verbatim the text from the normal payroll notification and then resend that as a fake email out to a large number of people here on campus with a link that went to a site that was not actually the Stanford Access website where you would go to view your online pay statement. A second example, this one's a little bit more obvious. This is, uses has many of the typical tips. You've got an unprofessional title there to the email, a whole bunch of exclamation points associated with it. The email address is a forged one. That's, who is the Stanford webmail team? That's not something that you would normally recognize as a legitimate entity or individual. And you've got bad grammar and typos that are present in here, and there's this sense of urgency. If you don't do something right now, your account's going to be locked out. They try and create that sense of urgency so that you jump right into it. So this one hopefully is a little bit easier to spot. Similarly as well, there's this link that looks, by the text there, it says www.stanford.edu, but if you point at it, you will see it's not going at all to stanford.edu. It's not even an attempt to disguise it. It goes to a 123contactform.com, completely different site than stanford.edu. So the same tips apply, and that's one of the key ones is being circumspect about what is that URL that you're actually being presented with. That's the key. Some examples of, what some of these, a couple of real examples that we've seen within our organization. We've seen messages like this where FedEx, a message that masquerades as a FedEx message saying you need to update your FedEx delivery manager preferences. Same thing, if you hover over that, click here to log into my FedEx, you'll find that that's not an actual FedEx address that it's going to. Here's what it looks like. And then a second, even more targeted example, you've all seen this page before, the Stanford web login page. I know it looks different now. There's been a recent redesign, so it looks a little bit different than this, but you're probably familiar with this one. This was a page that was put together by an attacker to look exactly like the Stanford login page, and it's not. If you look up in the address up there at the top, it's not going to stanford.edu, it's going to cheappills.deals.info. Yeah. So This is the kind of thing that attackers will do as a part of a spear phishing attack. Try and design a page that looks exactly like something that you're used to interacting with, trick you into clicking through to that URL within an email, and come to a site that looks exactly like what you're used to seeing. You need to be very cautious about, is this real? Is this actually the web login.stanford.edu as opposed to cheappills.deals.info? Next thing that I wanted to touch on is two-step authentication. We've been using this for some time now here at Stanford, and you should all now be familiar with it. The key change that's happened recently is that in December, our original two-step authentication system was a homegrown one, something that developers in central IT had written themselves and put together as a way of protecting the Stanford login information and websites. With secondary login code that could be texted to your phone and such. That's been replaced in December with a commercial product called Duo. It's a commercially available product, and because of that, it offers some additional features and capabilities beyond what the original system had in place. And want to make sure that everybody's aware of those and is taking advantage of it. If you go to accounts.stanford.edu and click through to manage two-step, you'll be able there to set up push notifications using an app on your phone. You can download and install a Duo app on your phone, and when you go to log into to a website that requires that second step of authentication, you'll get a notification on your phone that second authorization is required. It'll look something like this. When you go to the login page, you just click that button that says send me a push notification after having entered your Sunnet ID and password. You'll get this notification on your phone, and you can simply click the approve, the big green approve check button down there on the lower left, and as a result of that, your two-step authentication is completed, and you'll move on to the next page within that website automatically. You don't have to read off a 6-digit code from your phone and re-enter it on the website. Nothing like that required. So it's a simpler and easier way. It's also helpful because it's a proactive notification. If you get one of these pop-ups without you having been on a Stanford website and beginning that login process, then you know that someone's monkeying with your account. Someone has logged in using your Sunnet ID and password and hit that next step of the authentication process. You've just gotten that notification even though you weren't the one that generated it. So it's a good way of being aware as well that someone might be using your account maliciously. Yeah, Shelley?
If you find that, what do you do?
Contact the help desk. Yes. Let us know that just happened, that it popped up, that you weren't the one that did it. In all likelihood, what we'll have you do is change your Sunnet ID password and as well report that to the Information Security Office so that they're aware that something's going on there. The other reasons that I skipped over here quickly, let me just back up a couple of slides, is that in addition to the Duo app and the convenience that it offers, the Duo application also allows you to set backup authentication methods. We've had plenty of instances where someone said, oh, I forgot my phone today. I can't get into any websites because I can't get the two-step authentication code. With Duo, you can set a backup method, and some of those backup methods can just be a normal phone number. You could enter your office phone number as a backup authentication method. Then when you go through the login process, there is a link to click for additional authentication methods. See that link at the bottom that says authenticate a different way? If you click on that, you'll get a list of your backup options. In my case, I have my iPhone and my iPad entered in there, so I can have either one of them and use either one of them for the Duo app and the push notifications. The other option that I have in there as a backup is a phone number. And if I click that, the phone rings, and I pick up the phone, and it says there's a message on there about the two-step authentication, and you can just hit a number on the keypad on the phone to proceed. and accept that and complete your two-step authentication. So it's a convenient way to have a backup just in case you don't have your phone with you. Yeah, Suki.
You mentioned that your office line, use your personal cell number?
You could, yeah. That's actually the way that I've done it. Is I have a Google Voice number that rings on 6 different locations, and so I set that up as my backup method. Yeah. So if you haven't done so already, log into the accounts.stanford.edu website and make sure that you have the Duo push notification set up and that you have a backup method set up. One of the things related to two-step authentication is that as of today, whenever you log into the Stanford VPN, if you're off-site and you need to connect to the VPN in order to get back on the Stanford network and get access to some otherwise protected or non-public resources, you will now be prompted for two-step authentication every time you do the VPN login. And so having the Duo app set up is going to make it a whole lot easier to proceed through that two-step authentication with the VPN. Next topic that I wanted to cover is the endpoint encryption deadline. I think that you all have experienced the fact that the help desk has been coming around and making sure that every one of our computers here has an encrypted hard drive, that we enable the hard drive encryption on it. This has been an important initiative for the university as a whole. Those of you that have been here for a number of years will remember that there have been incidents in the past where someone who had access to the PeopleSoft database lost their laptop, and the entire set of university personnel information was lost and out there, and so everybody got signed up for identity theft monitoring and such. The university is placing a very high priority on ensuring that an incident like that does not happen again, and making sure that if and when a computer is ever lost or stolen, that hard drive is encrypted and we can basically write it off. I've had people within IT services comment to me that literally when a report comes in about a lost or stolen machine, and it's known that that was an encrypted machine, it's literally just, okay, great, thank you for telling us, we go about our business for the rest of the day, versus a report that comes in that a machine was lost and it was not encrypted. Then the red alert goes off and the general counsel gets mobilized and all sorts of things start happening as everybody tries to determine exactly what data was on that machine and what are the risks, what is the potential exposure to the university. So it is a big deal. We have a deadline. This was put out in a memo back in August that by May 31st, all machines that are used for Stanford Business must have an encrypted hard drive. And the wording of that is important because it is literally everything that might be used for Stanford Business. There's some more of the details around it. A key implication of this is that for any of you who have a personal computer at home that you're used to checking your email on, or you occasionally bring home a USB flash drive in order to update a spreadsheet or a Word document, or maybe you use Stanford's Fox.com service and log into that from home in order to download a presentation that you were working on and continue working on it on your home computer. Anytime you do Stanford Business like that on your home computer, it's now in scope for this encryption mandate. And it must be verifiably encrypted, has to satisfy all of the same requirements as the rest of our Stanford-owned machines and hardware. Our approach here within LBRE is to say, use your Stanford-owned equipment for Stanford Business. We have many people who have a need to work at home or outside of the office already have a laptop. Bring that laptop home with you and use it for purposes of completing your work, accessing your email, those sorts of things. Or use your mobile device, use your iPhone or your iPad if you have one of those to access that information. Don't use your home computer because that puts it in scope for this mandate. Yeah.
Is accessing webmail on your home computer, is that an exception?
That is included in this. It's considered to be you're accessing your email in Stanford Business, and part of the reason for that is that once you're logged into webmail, information on emails you're viewing and such can be cached locally within your computer. So the data is there on your computer. So it is in scope. Exceptions would be if you wanted to access the benefits website from your personal computer at home. That's part of your work here at the university as an employee and your ability to sign up for benefits. That's certainly allowed. Yeah. It's possible to do that, yes. We won't be supporting it directly as a part of the help desk and IT. We definitely don't want to get ourselves in the business of supporting everybody's personal home computer. And so we're making it a conscious decision. We're not doing that. There is information available that we could point you to if you wanted to proceed with that. Personally, I have encrypted my home computer on my own just because I think it's a safe thing to do. If someone were to break into my house and steal my computer, I have that peace of mind of knowing that they can't get to the data, which is meaningful to me. And we could certainly provide some information and advice on that. So benefits is an exception, accessing your pay statement and payroll information is an exception, and then of course public websites. If you wanted to go to the Stanford Athletics website and see the schedule for the upcoming football season, that's free game. It's a public website. There's no Summit ID login required for that. So any of those sites that don't require a Summit ID login is simply something that you can access from your home computer. Key is those business functions. If you have to log in with the Summit ID, if you're bringing home work, a spreadsheet or a Word document, those things need to happen on a Stanford-owned machine that has the protections.
Yeah. One question: Will the actual email not work? Will the email work?
It will continue to work. Yeah. Unfortunately, Central IT has not been able to set up a method by which the email won't work. They're slowly working in that direction, and the first thing that they're going to be doing is that it's been common for people to bring a personally owned machine onto campus and join it to the Stanford network. It's something that you can do as a self-registration of the machine. If you bring it on campus and access Stanford Wireless, it'll run you through a set of steps where you log in with your Summit ID in order to get your computer online on the Stanford Wireless network. One of the things that they will be doing in that case is checking to make sure that your machine meets all the security requirements. If not, it'll be placed in a quarantine zone where you won't have any network access until you meet all of the requirements. Fortunately, they're not applying that yet to people who are on their DSL or cable modem service at home to be able to quarantine off those machines.
Is the visitor network still going to be available?
Visitor network is still available.
Will it affect remote desktop audience?
It will affect remote desktop audience, yes. We should probably talk about that a little bit more. One of the things that we aim to do as a service offering is recognizing that there are people who wouldn't want to or might not have a computer that they can bring home with them, is that we've been working with Central IT to set up a virtual desktop service wherein we would be able to give you a client for VMware that you could use to log into a desktop session that is hosted on a server here at Stanford. That way all of the data stays on the server here at Stanford, and we can configure that in a way that doesn't allow data to be downloaded from that remote session to your local machine. We're going to need to take a similar approach to remote desktop sessions and how we manage them. Yeah, Zuki.
Like with the saturation of the iDevices across campus going around the RE users, how is that applied to that? Are those all encrypted?
They are, exactly. The mobile device management service forces the password enablement on the iDevices, and when you enable a password, that encrypts the device. The physical storage device is on it is encrypted as well.
What about your personal ID device? Because you have to have MDM, some kind of MDM.
Exactly. So if you join it to the Stanford MDM service, then it is encrypted, and you can use your email and calendar Stanford services on it.
But then I would have to be forced to have a password lock on my
Correct.
personal device.
You would. Yeah. Exactly right. Yeah. So it's yeah.
I just just understand a little bit how that works? So that means that, let's say somebody stole my iPhone, and then there's obviously a way that they can break into it without my passcode, and that's what triggers encryption. Is that right? Like if somebody tries to break through that passcode?
Yeah, so the way that the iDevice, the iOS system works is that when you set a passcode, it actually then encrypts the storage on the device, much like if you were to take a laptop computer and turn on the encryption capability within Windows. If someone has stolen your device, one of the key parts of the mobile device management service, if you lose it or if it's stolen, is that you have the ability to log on to mdm.stanford.edu and say, I've lost my device. I want to wipe it out. And you can click a button and it will remotely, if that device comes back on the network, it will check back in with the mobile device management service with AirWatch and get that message that says wipe it. And that's one of the key capabilities of the mobile, the MDM service that makes it an important protection. So a lot of what I'm talking about here is detailed in this policy document that was the handout that we had at the back of the room. Looks like everybody's got one of these. We'll be distributing this a little bit more broadly. This restates what has been a longstanding policy here within land, buildings, and real estate to what we call our one computer per person policy. The idea being that we make sure that each person here in the department has a computer that satisfies their needs. And in many cases, that means for somebody who has the ability to work or the need to work outside of the office, that they have a laptop that they can carry back and forth and use wherever they need it. So it's a restatement and reaffirmation of that principle and that policy, as opposed to saying that we would support a computer here in the office and a second machine that you keep at home and maybe a third machine that you keep somewhere else. That just multiplies the support cost for maintaining that. Part of what's covered in this. The other thing that's in here is talking about that fact that with the endpoint compliance and encryption requirements, that what our policy is that Stanford work happen on Stanford-owned equipment that we know has met those requirements, as opposed to on your personal home computer. So that's covered in this document. Yeah.
Have all business software packages embedded to be compatible with the encryption software?
I would say so. We've done an awful lot of testing with encrypted machines and have been in the mode where everything has been encrypted for some time and have validated that everything works as expected. We're actually related to that. Everybody here probably has a machine that's running Microsoft Windows 7 operating system. We realized that for a number of years now, Microsoft has had Windows 8 available. And it's time for us to begin that migration. So starting in March, we will begin deploying new machines using Windows 8 with the encryption in Windows 8 built turned on, and have already gone through the process. Parth and his team have already gone through the process of building up a master image for a Windows 8 system and validating that all of the applications work as expected on it. It's part of what we do as a part of our standard build process. Build it once, test everything, make sure it works, reuse that time and again for every machine that we deploy. So we'll start doing that with Windows 8.1 beginning next month. So next topic that I wanted to touch on is secure passwords. I think you've all heard many times that longer is better when it comes to a password. Having a password that is our standard here within land, buildings, and real estate has been 16 characters or more, and we really encourage people to get into the 20-plus character range. This is the Student ID password policy right off of the website. Stanford was actually praised for developing this and implementing this as our password policy. You've seen plenty of sites that have these very difficult rules where you have to have a minimum of 8 characters and a maximum of 12 characters, and it must have an uppercase letter, a lowercase letter, a number, a symbol, so on and so forth. And trying to concoct a password that meets those requirements can get pretty complicated and result in something that really isn't easy for you to remember and use again. Stanford took the approach of that longer is better mantra. And what you see here is a result of that. If you have a password that is over 20 characters, it can be all lowercase. It doesn't have to have numbers in it. It doesn't have to have special symbols, because the length is what affects the time to crack a password or to guess it. Just as an example of that, so there's Lbre minimum requirement is in that 16 to 19, and our recommendation is to be in that 20 or more category. Here's an example, a couple of sample passwords. The first one is sort of the conventional password wisdom. We've got numbers, we've got letters, we've got uppercase, we've got lowercase. We've taken a word, Bonair, and we've mixed it around by replacing the O with a 0 and the A with an @ symbol and the I with an exclamation point, and it's all very gobbledygook looking. Because it's short, it's not obviously not the greatest password around for people here, because someone could easily know that's where I work. My office is in 340 Bonair, so not the greatest choice. But because it's short, even though you've got all those complications in it, a password guessing application based on current computing capabilities could guess that password in less than a day. So if you just set a computer running and said, I need to retry to get that password, in less than a day it would have that answer. If, on the other hand, I use plain English and fully type out 340 Bonair Siding Road, it would take 256 centuries for that same computer to guess that password because of the length of it, even though it doesn't have anything funky or special in terms of weird characters or other punctuation things going on in it. Yeah.
Do the spaces count as a character?
The spaces do count. And so I encourage people to use them. I mean, it's how you're used to typing. Come up with a passphrase that's a sentence. Use the spaces in there as a part of it. They definitely count as a part of the characters, and they add to the complexity of it. Yeah, Suki.
Is there a fast forward to going to biometrics at some point?
We're beginning to see it with some of the iDevices. Obviously, we're not seeing it yet on the laptops and computer devices. There's been attempts at it for years, but no, we're not there yet. So that's the story behind passwords and why the push for longer is better on those. And now to the point that I mentioned at the beginning. A lot of people have commented about, I have all these different websites that I go to. I know I'm supposed to use a different password for every website. I know it's supposed to be a long password. I can't keep track of them all. I don't know what my password is for that site versus this site, because and what you fall into is reusing the same password over and over again. Pick a good one, and then you end up reusing it in a bunch of sites. The danger in that is that if one of those sites gets compromised, the person that compromised it now has can retry that password over and over again in multiple other places, because they know that people often will reuse the same password in multiple places. And so one of the ways around that, we've batted this idea around in past tech talks and decided not to focus on this. I'm going to go ahead and step into it, though. There are password manager tools that are out there that you can use as a centralized password database that is secured, that allows you to keep all of your passwords in one place. There's a bunch of different tools out there. This happens to be a screenshot from a website that did a comparison of multiple tools. I've read a number of these reviews and ended up, for my own personal purposes, choosing to use an application called LastPass. My reasons for picking it were, based upon positive reviews, and this particular site, it actually came out first on top. My other reason for picking it is that it has a two-step authentication capability. the way that the password management tools work is that they are basically one list, one central database with all your passwords in it. They typically have some form of a master password that you need to enter in order to unlock and access that list of all of your saved usernames and passwords. And so you put all your eggs in one basket. You need to be concerned about, is that basket secure? How do I know that somebody, if they were to get a hold of it, couldn't eventually guess my master password and get their way into it? Having the two-step authentication helps offset that concern a little bit, because not only would they need to have your master password, they would also need to have your two-step authentication code in order to get into it. And LastPass happens to offer that as an option.
We were just making sure you were still recording.
Just making sure that I'm still there. Thank you. LastPass is the one that I use. And again, I'm talking about this as an example of something that I chose to personally use. I want to make sure that you don't hear this as an official recommendation from Lbre. The university has not taken a position of promoting the password management tool in any way. And I just wanted to answer the questions that people have come to me a number of times saying, hey, we know these tools are out there. Which one do you suggest using? So this is my personal experience and suggestion for that. Yes, Arna?
So a few people that went down the road with those password managers all the way, they used the built-in password generators, and they just copy and paste the password. So they don't even know all their passwords anymore. They just keep it in the password manager, copy paste.
Agreed.
They don't have to think about it.
That's a good point, and that's exactly what I've done with LastPass. I can do a quick demo of it here just to show you how it works. And what Arna's talking about is that many of these tools, LastPass being one of them, and there are a number of others that you saw listed there on the screen, have included in them a random password generator as a part of the tool. And so what I've done is, since I started using LastPass about 10 months ago, every time I log into a website that I haven't visited in a while, in the browser, it will pop up a notification window saying, hey, this is the first time you visited this site. Do you want me to remember this username and password? I say yes. Then on the site, I go to my settings and account information, and I change my password because I know that what I was using on there was an old password that I haven't changed in a long time, and it's probably one that isn't the most secure. I go to the change password function, and I use a LastPass generated password. I look at their password rules, maximum of 18 characters. Great, LastPass, give me an 18-character password. And it'll just spit one out that is a whole bunch of gobbledygook, and it's nothing that I am ever going to remember, but I don't care because it's saved in the database. So a quick demo of what that looks like. If I go back to my web browser session here, and collapse our video windows so just in case Jonathan pops up again. In the browser, there's a plugin basically for LastPass, and if I click on that, it's going to say, give me your master password. Yeah, ABC123.
Works every time.
And then it's going to say, give me your two-step authentication code. And so I'm using the Google Authenticator app that some of you may be familiar with from our Stanford two-step authentication. And I need to enter the code from that. Unfortunately, no, it doesn't directly integrate with Duo and the push notifications that I was talking about earlier. But I'm willing to deal with that one inconvenience in this case. So once I've done that and logged into LastPass, now I have access to my full vault, if you will, of all of my saved sites and passwords. And just to show you what that looks like, I can go to, for example, the first one on the list here happens to be the login for a website for the RSA conference. That's an information security conference that's coming up in about a month or so in San Francisco. And we have a number of people within our department that are registered for it. I had to create a login for that site when I signed up for our registration. We did a group registration to get some discount on it. I'll never remember what password I used for that site, in part because I used LastPass to create that password and and save that login information. And all I have to do is click on that saved site within my LastPass vault. It automatically logs me into the RSA website using the saved credentials that I have, and will show me what my registration information is for it. You can also do a quick search. Another one that I have appreciated it for is I always used to get the email notifications for my fast track toll tag thing saying, hey, your fast track statement for the month is available. And they used to have a terrible system where you had to know your account number and a PIN number and all this archaic stuff that I would never, ever remember. They've improved that a bit. But even so, now if I want to know what my, how much have I spent on crossing bridges around the bay, I just do a quick search for Fast Track. I click on it, and it's going to automatically log me into the Fast Track websites, tell me what my current balance is, and so on and so forth. So my login information is stored there. I honestly don't know what my password is for this particular website, for any of these websites. I can look it up. I can go see what it is within the password vault if I wanted to see it. No, just click and go. Exactly.
Do you have a free version or does this cost?
It's a good point. This particular application is free. LastPass is a free application. There is no cost associated with it. The only cost comes into play if you want to upgrade to what they call their premium version. The only thing that offers is that then on your mobile device, there is a LastPass mobile app that you can use if you're trying to log into a website from your mobile device. And so it's useful for that. That's $12 a year. So for $1 a month, I get access to the mobile app and have access to this on a daily basis on my computer. One thing that I have specifically done since I've set this up is I have not put any of my Stanford credentials in here. Given that it's not something that's been officially sanctioned by the university or recommended, I don't have my Senate ID and password in here. I have all of my other personal information saved in this, but not my Stanford login. I continue to type in my Senate ID and password every time I go to a website, all 20-something characters of it. Any other questions about this? Yeah, Jeff.
Duo versus Google Authenticator.
Uh-huh.
Going one way or the other, or we just fine using Google Authenticator? That's what we're...
You can continue to use Google Authenticator. For purposes of the Stanford two-step auth, we recommend using Duo and the Duo Push only because of the convenience that it offers. We think you're going to like it a whole lot better, and because of the potential for a proactive notification if someone is trying to maliciously use your Senate ID. So those are two reasons to encourage the use of the Duo app. You can actually use the Duo app in the same way that you use Google Authenticator. So for example, what I just showed here where I had to enter a Google Authenticator code into LastPass, I could go set up Duo to take over the function that Google Authenticator offers for me, and I could use the Duo app to see that generated code that I have to retype. It does have that capability. I haven't gone to the trouble of setting it up. I already had it set up in Google Authenticator, and I kept using it there. Yeah.
What's the website? Can you go back to the website that shows you how to set up for the Duo? Was it the
accounts.stanford.edu? Yeah. If I roll back up here. There. Yeah, accounts.stanford.edu. If you go to that website, log in with your Senate ID and password and click the Manage button, and then you'll see a set of tabs for the various, you can change your Senate ID password there, for example. You can manage your email forwarding settings and some other things. One of the tabs is two-step auth. And so that's where you would go to set up the Duo push notifications and also to set up a backup method of communication. Any other questions about any of the topics that I covered here today?
So
Yeah.
You talked about the phishing and everything, recognizing that. Are there not any filters in addition to that that can be added to our devices or to our desktops that can kind of predetermine that this can even
Right.
go through to some
I know
the junk box?
that Central IT is looking at the spam filtering capabilities that already exist on campus and looking at how those can be improved in order to spot phishing messages and similarly filter those out just like spam is filtered out. I don't know exactly what technologies they're looking at and what their tools are, but it is one of the things that they're searching for a solution for.
The reason I'm sharing this with you because I have a personal computer, Mac. If you're familiar with Mac Keeper, there's a tendency to pop up, and even if you try to exit that, and you trigger an automatic download, even
Right.
though you're exiting it. So I've been told by the Apple people not to do that. Just go and turn your computer off and do a restart on it, and not even trigger when in doubt. Don't hit the exit sign.
Yeah.
That's how that particular phishing is going on with that.
I see. Okay. Yeah, there are some more things that we will be doing on the technology side on all of our computers here. And one of the things that a couple of Microsoft-specific tools for our Windows operating systems that we're being encouraged to implement. I know the Graduate School of Business has already done an implementation of a Microsoft tool called Emmet, which is a security behavior tool. Rather than your traditional antivirus tool says, I have this code that's trying to run, does this match a known signature of a known bad thing, and should I block it? Or it's just been downloaded or saved to the hard drive, and I can look at what that code is and match it with a signature that I've been provided from a central resource. That's a reactive mode. Someone already has to have identified that it's a bad piece of software, reported it to the antivirus vendor, and the antivirus vendor has to develop a signature and push it out to everybody. The Emmet tool is more about monitoring the behavior and what an application is doing and flagging suspicious behavior of an application. If it's doing things that are unexpected and not normal for the typical operations of your computer, it will block that. And so that's something that we're going to be testing some more with, working the kinks out and figuring out how to get that implemented on our computers here. Yeah, Tom.
Are our Stanford computers backed up? You're not these
Yes, they are.
What are all the files, photos that's on there?
Yeah, that is one of the things that we've done. So we've implemented a backup tool called Crash Plan on every Stanford owned computer here within Lbre. It's something that we had started a number of years ago on our own, and since then, University IT has come out with a central service offering that actually improves our pricing, and we were able to push it out to everybody. Jonathan's been managing that deployment and remotely making sure that it's installed on every single machine here in Lbre. Yeah, sure.
It works too, because if you get a virus on your computer, like I did, they basically run to your desk.
Yes.
So it does work in case there is a slip up and you're worried about having to cause a bomb.
In that case, it's the centrally managed antivirus where all the red alerts go off. You've got a virus.
Yeah, it was a little
We come running.
so it won't happen.
Yeah, but the backup tool is something that we have installed on every machine, and we happen to use an application called Crash Plan. Another bit of personal advice: I use Crash Plan personally at home. You can go to crashplan.com. They have very reasonable rates, and if you want to back up your home computer because you have your pictures and videos of your kids from the time that they were born up until they graduated from college, you don't want to lose that stuff. You want to back it all up. They have very reasonable rates for doing exactly that, and that's what I've done.
Is that a daily folder backup?
It is. It does it continuously. When your computer is turned on and connected to the network, it will automatically push any changes. It's continuously monitoring for any new files or changes to files that you have stored on your computer, and it will push those up to the backup service. Within all of our Stanford machines, we have the ability to look at a console and see that everybody is up to date in terms of their backups and flag anybody that's behind. If your computer hasn't been on long enough for your backups to complete, and you're not at 100%, we're able to see those and follow up and make sure that you do get all fully backed up, or know if it's not backing up at all. Similarly, if you were to sign up for that as a personal service, CrashPlan will send you an email a couple times a week saying your computer's not backed up, you need to turn it on and let us do a backup of it because we haven't seen it in 3 days. Yeah.
Curiosity, where is the backup kept? Is it locally on the machine, or is it
Remotely? So in the case of CrashPlan, they have their own storage service. It's a cloud service offering. Basically, it pushes it all up to their servers. And so Stanford, in the past, we managed our own backup server and ran CrashPlan on it. All your backups were pushed to that machine. Our new operating model with University IT, since they got some really good rates from CrashPlan, we're able to just push it up to CrashPlan's cloud storage and keep it all there. And they've sanctioned that as an acceptable place to store Stanford data.
Michael?
Yeah.
I believe there's 2 Stanford wirelesses, the Stanford Visitor.
Correct. There are.
So with a personal device, if I'm running wireless at the gym or anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
and is this going to need to be encrypted on the regular Stanford? And will I encrypt my phone or
Right.
just jump into Stanford Visitor?
Per se, the encryption doesn't directly relate to accessing for your mobile device. It doesn't directly relate to accessing the wireless network. I mentioned earlier that there is an initiative underway to do a verification step that says if you don't meet all of the security requirements, then your device gets quarantined, if you will, and doesn't have full network access. That's not in place yet, and I don't have the details on exactly how that's going to work and what conditions apply, but it is coming. I would encourage, certainly if you have a personal device and if you have it configured in any way to access Stanford information, I would encourage you to use the Stanford MDM service to secure it. Then you know that it's encrypted, you know that it meets the security requirements, you can go to mdm.stanford.edu and wipe the device if you ever lose it.
No, I don't use it for any Stanford related stuff.
Okay.
Just keep the wireless on.
Sure. Yeah, Shelley.
Just for clarification, if you're home and you don't have a Stanford supported computer at home, you need to put in your time card. It does ask for your student.
It does,
And
correct.
that's okay.
That's okay, yes. It's one of the exceptions that is specifically called out. If you were to look at, I mentioned a policy memo from August, and these slides will be posted up to our intranet website, so you could go back to it later. August 5th, 2014. You can get to this just by going to security.stanford.edu, and there's a navigation menu on the right-hand side for information security, and there's links to all of the various communications that have gone out campus-wide over the course of the last year and a half or so related to information security. That memo right there specifically identifies accessing your payroll information as one of the exceptions that's allowed. So from your personal computer at home, you could go to access.stanford.edu, log in with your Sunnet ID and password. They did that specifically because they didn't want to lock people out or prohibit them from getting to their pay statements. And so that's specifically an allowed activity, part of your personal life. Any other questions? We're right at 11 o'clock. So thank you very much for coming. I appreciate your attention today.